Like many novels that are more known about than are carefully read and analyzed, 1984 is actually a more complex work than the labeled nightmare, dystopian vision can convey. 1984 is probably the most famous novel about totalitarianism and about the dangers of allowing a one-party state where democracy, freedom of movement, freedom of speech, and even freedom of thought are all outlawed. The novel is often analyzed as a warning about the dangers of allowing a creeping totalitarianism into Britain after the horrors of such regimes in the Soviet Union, Nazi Germany, and elsewhere had been witnessed. Because of this quality of the book, it is often called prophetic and a nightmare vision of the future, among other things. However, books set in the future are rarely simply about the future. Indeed, we might go so far as to say that most dystopian novels, whilst nominally set in an imagined future, are really using their future setting to reflect on what are already firmly established social or political ideas. In the case of Orwell and 1984, this means the novel reflects the London of the 1940s. By the time he came to write the novel, Orwell already had a long-standing interest in using his writing to highlight the horrors of totalitarianism around the world, especially following his experience fighting in the Spanish Civil War in the 1930s. As Orwell put it in his essay Why I Write, all of his serious work written since 1936 was written against totalitarianism and for democratic socialism. The novel's protagonist is Winston Smith, who works at the Ministry of Truth, rewriting historical records so they are consistent with the state's latest version of history. However, even though his day job involves doing the work of the party, Winston longs to escape the oppressive control of the party, hoping for a rebellion. Winston meets the owner of an antique shop named Mr. Charrington, from whom he buys a diary in which he can record his true feelings towards the party. Believing the working-class proles are the key to a revolution, Winston visits them, but is disappointed to find them wholly lacking in any political understanding. Meanwhile, hearing of the existence of an underground resistance movement known as the Brotherhood, which has been formed by the rival of Big Brother, a man named Emmanuel Goldstein, Winston suspects that O'Brien, who also works with him, is involved with this resistance. At lunch with another colleague, named Syme, Winston learns that the English language is being rewritten as Newspeak so as to control and influence people's thought, the idea being that if the word for an idea doesn't exist in the language, people will be unable to think about it. Winston meets a woman named Julia who works for the Ministry of Truth, maintaining novel writing machines, but believes she is a party spy sent to watch him. He gives Winston a copy of the book written by Goldstein, the leader of the Brotherhood. When Oceania's enemy changes during the Ritual Hate Week, Winston is tasked with making further historical revisions to old newspapers and documents to reflect this change. Meanwhile, Winston and Julia secretly read Goldstein's book, which explains how the party maintains its totalitarian power. As Winston had suspected, the secret to overthrowing the party lies in the vast mass of the population known as the proles. It turns out that both he and O'Brien work for the thought police, on behalf of the party. At the Ministry of Love, O'Brien tells Winston that Goldstein's book was actually written by him and other party members, and that the Brotherhood may not even exist. Winston endures torture and starvation in an attempt to grind him down so he will accept Big Brother. In Room 101, a room in which a prisoner is exposed to their greatest fear, Winston is placed in front of a wire cage containing rats, which he fears above all else. Winston betrays Julia, wishing she could take his place and endure this suffering instead. The novel ends with Winston accepting, after all, that the party has won and that he loved Big Brother.
It's not a game, it's a rich thing.